Hi, my name is Cindy Rang with the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington. You can find us at fabricpatch.net, and we are going to start our panel border series. My daughter and I have owned and operated a busy quilt shop in Washington State for over 20 years. We have a retreat center, an active YouTube channel, and a large pattern line featuring our creations. My two sons work on machines. One daughter-in-law is our videographer and the other is a long-arm quilter. We are a family that love each other, we laugh together, and every once in a while we get some work done. We have a crew that are saints for their efforts at keeping us on track. Thanks for joining us on our wild ride. All right, so over the past 22 years, we've had our quilt shop. We have done block of the month, pincushion of the month, pillow of the month, of course, quilt of the month, and block of the month. This is our first time that we are doing a border of the month featuring printed panels. We're kind of excited about this. So some of you guys have already purchased your panels and you're waiting to go, and some of you guys might still be thinking about it, or you have something else that you want to be bordering as we go along. So we're going to start pretty simple and we're going to work our way up so that you learn new skills along the way. We're going to have 13 classes because there are 13 panels. The ones that we're going to be doing in the class are the Hoffman printed all season, Celebrate the Seasons panels is what they're called. So this is the first one. All of them are similar. Let me see, I'm going to flip it up. They are all 2-yard panels, digitally printed, and since it's a 2-yard panel, you have your roughly 24-inch wide printed piece plus about 1.25 yards of coordinating fabric. And so what happens is you can just cut it apart right here where one image ends and the other one starts, and you have this piece that we're going to use for part. You can use it for the back or for part of the border, and then this is the one that we're going to piece with. So on our website, we are selling these, again, 2-yard digitally printed Hoffman fabrics. We're selling each panel for $24.99. Or if you want the entire set because you don't want to miss out and risk that some of the others are going to be sold out, you can get the whole 13 panel package. It's a one-time purchase. You get a packet sent to you every quarter. You pay for your shipping the first time, we pay for your shipping after that, and you get 2 panels for free. So you buy the whole set, pay for it up front, 2 panels for free, and shipping 2 sets for free. They're all a little bit different, and if you go to our website at fabricpatch.net, you'll be able to see them. I'm just going to show you January's. This is the one that we're going to do in November. So we'll always be about 2 months ahead so that you can get your cute little wall hanging up and hanging up for this season. So this is our next one. All right, all of them you can see right on our website. We've obviously got a February, a March, an April, and we'll be doing this once a month, 2 months in advance of when you'll want to be hanging it up. So again, we're going to start with this one. This one is just one of this is the bonus one, and it's called Home Sweet Home, and I'm going to start by cutting it apart. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut my panel apart right where I showed you where this fabric ends and this fabric starts. So I have my 1 yard of printed fabric that I'm going to set aside. We're going to use this again in a few minutes. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to square up the piece that I have left. So for this particular panel, I'm just going to go ahead and make it square. And first I want to know what I have to work with. And I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure from what is printed right here to the edge of my white. I have 1.25 inches. Pretty straight line. I have 1.25 inches. Do you see that? From that edge to the white, 1.25 inches. I'm going to do the same thing on this edge. So I'm going to come around. I'm going to line this up And I'm going to go ahead and try to keep this straight. So this is straight on this side. I am right at my 1.25 inches. I'm right at the top of that mark. And I'm straight on that side. I'm going to take my rotary cutter, just double check. And I have done this enough that I feel perfectly confident doing it. I'm just going to double check one last time. 1.25 inches to the mark. I'm straight and I'm straight. This we're not using, but it is just regular white fabric. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm actually going to do the bottom next, just because I know that these are going to be straight and I might have to shave just a little bit off of what I cut with the scissors. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go down. And I am at 1.25 inches. That one off. And then I'm going to look at my edge over here. So I just cut this one, which is nice and straight. I'm lining up right on my edge here. I'm at 1.25 inches. You can kind of see that edge is off just a little, and I kind of expected that. So now I'm just going to clean that edge up. And I'm going to line this up. Seems a little tedious, but so I'm still 1.25 inches. I'm at 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. I'm all along my edge here, and I'm straight up at that straight edge. And I just have a tiny little bit to shave off. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, I'm doing this just to make sure that my piece is even. I wouldn't necessarily say square, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so I'm at 1.25 inches from the edge here, 1.25 inches from that. So again, just so that I have mostly my wreath showing and not a lot of that background. That's kind of what the goal is. And as I'm getting this straight edge, I'm making sure that up here, let me just show you that again, up at the top. So I've got my cut here, and see my ruler? It's lining up right with that cut edge. So I have this perfect 45-degree angle right here. All right. So I've cut out my center. Now it's time to do just a tiny bit of math. All right, so if you guys are already doing this program with us, then you have already received in your little inbox, you've received the pattern. If not, if you want this, it has a whole lot of blanks for you to fill in what applies to you, but I think it's available down below as a download. But as we go through these each month, what you'll see is they're all designed essentially the same, and you could do the same thing each time. You could do something totally different. We're just going to show you a couple of different options each time, doing something a little bit different. Each time we're going to audition fabrics. We're going to talk about how we come to the decision and how we come to the size that we came to. So all of ours, I'm just going to tell you straight up, they're not all going to be the same size. We're going to do different things as we go along. This one truly is just going to be a small little wall hanging. And what can happen with my center is that this can easily be backing. This piece, I measured it, I think initially I said that it was 1.33 yards. It is not. It is 39 inches by 43 inches. So what we're gonna do today, I need a backing. And so my backing, I need 1 yard for my back. For my first little border that I'm going to put on, I need 1/3 yard. For my cornerstones that we're going to do, I need 1/4 yard. And for my second border, I will need 1/2 yard. So you have to decide kind of what you're going to do. I've picked out a few fabrics just to show you how I would audition fabric. And I'm going to tell you that I think for me personally, I'm not going to put this on the back. I'm actually going to use this as a border. I only need 1/2 yard of it, and when I cut my 1/2 yard off, it's not going to be big enough for the back. So it's just going to be an extra piece of fabric that's going to go in my stash. That might not be something that the rest of you want to do. You want to maybe just make sure that you have enough for your backing, and you'll choose something else. When I audition fabrics, normally what I do is that's exactly what I do. I lay it all out, I look at it a little bit, try to decide if that's the right color or not. These are some of the bolts that we grabbed from this shop just to kind of see. We thought that a lot of these were some of the colors that were in the fabric and things that we thought might look kind of good. We're always looking for a different texture. This was the one that I really liked. I love this kind of deep teal texture. This one happens to be, it is a linen texture by Andover, and it's by Laundry Basket. And so I really like this one. It might read solid through the camera, but it does look like linen, but it's 100% cotton. So when I audition, if you just put that up there, you can kind of see sort of what that looks like. I like just a dark border that's just going to go ahead and frame it, and then I like that as my second border. It's only going to be, I'm going to cut 2.5 inches of this one, 3.5 inches off of the next one. So then for my cornerstones on the corner, I could pick something like this, but then it's a whole lot of flowery, whole lot of teal. So we kind of liked this one. This particular fabric is a Northcott. It's called Mama Bear. It's called Mama Bear Tan. And so it's just kind of nice because it's that same color that's in these little cotton pods. And we kind of liked that, and we thought that if we added these two together, it's not quite so girly. It really could be homey instead. So these are the colors that I've picked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a couple strips off, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about math and why I cut what I cut. Okay. I'm actually going to show you a couple of cutting things because I think that some of you guys that are doing this with us could be beginners. We think this would be a very appropriate class for beginners because, again, we're going to start with some basics and then kind of grow from there. I do also want to mention that we'll link below a borders class that we did about a year ago that talks about borders as a rule with quilts and how to add them, why we add them, all of the measuring that we do. We are going to cover that with this, but if you just want a little bit more in depth, we have a full video just on basic borders. So I've already cut 4 2.5-inch strips for my first border, and then I have cut a 4-inch strip. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that in a second out of my cornerstones. And now I'm cutting off of this beautiful potential backing piece. Again, for me, I am going to use it as a border instead. So I'm cutting 4-inch strips. Now, when I cut, I use my ruler to measure, or I put my ruler on what I'm cutting. And so what I mean by that is sometimes you'll see people that will line up their 4 inches, lining it up on their mat, and they cut here, and this is their 4-inch piece. I don't do that because I think there's a whole lot of sliding going on, and things can get a little bit distorted. So instead, what I do is I measure my 4 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my line. I'm going to line that up right on that cut edge because I already cut one off. So here I'm right on that edge, 1, 2, 3, 4. Put constant pressure, walk my hand up my ruler, and cut my strip. So there's my 4-inch. I've cut my second one. I'm going to do my next one. The other thing that we'll do is we'll often use a wet erase marker and make a little line if you just feel like you're getting a little confused about what line you're using, but instead I line it up where I think, and then I always double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm right on that line. I'm going to put down my pressure and walk up. There's my third strip, and I need 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right on that line. And the reason we walk up the ruler is that if I were to, I'm going to go ahead and finish, so I move my hand and cut again, because if I didn't, I'm just going to show you with my blade closed, if I just put my hand here and I go to cut up, it could be that when I get up here, if I don't have pressure on that ruler, I could very easily, as I'm pushing, I could slide that ruler. So that's why what you want to do is you want to cut where your hand is, move your hand, and then keep cutting so that you're holding that pressure down. And having a non-slip ruler also really works, whether that's a creative grid with the little marks on it, a Quilter's Select, or if you've put something on the back side of your ruler to make sure that it doesn't slide. Okay, I have my 4 strips that are cut at 4 inch, my 4 strips that are cut at 2.5, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with my cornerstone. So I went ahead and cut 1 4-inch strip. I think we said that you needed a 1/4 yard, but actually you probably really only need 1/8 of a yard, because from my 4-inch strip, I'm going to first cut off my selvage, and then I'm going to cut 4 4-inch squares. So I'm just lining this up again. I've got this on my edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can see that all of my lines are straight. So I'm cutting 2 at once. There's one and there's my other one. I'm going to do it again. Right on my edge here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so there's my 4 4-inch cornerstones, but I also need 4 2.5-inch cornerstones. So rather than cut a whole nother 2.5-inch strip, I'm going to cut it out of this one. So I'm just going to cut my 1, 2, and oops, and a half. And then I'm going to do it again. One, 2, and a half. This is left over. And I'm just going to turn these. So they're 2.5 wide. I just want to make sure that they're 2.5 long. So there's my 1/2 inch, 1, 2, and a half. And so then instead of cutting a whole nother strip, I just have this little waist piece that can go into something else. One, 2, and a half. Okay. So there's my cornerstones. Now it's time to talk about math. All right, so my particular panel, when I cut it the way that I did, I ended up with 22.5 inches wide by 26 inches long. That was my measurement. So in my little paper, that's what I'm going to write down. 22.5 by 26. You may be exactly the same. You might be a little bit different. A lot of it just sort of depends on what you've decided to measure. And again, for me, it didn't matter that it was square. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted it to look square by making sure that what I have surrounding my image is equal, is the same. That's when we were lining that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first border with these little 2.5-inch pieces, and with each of these strips, I'm going to cut a 22.5-inch strip and a 22.5-inch strip, and then I'm going to cut out of another one, I'm going to cut my 26 and my 26. So the way that I would do that, I'm just going to show you, when I said that I use my ruler to measure, that would be true with strips also. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 at the same time. So I'm just going to lay this out on my mat. I'm going to lay out my second one. Cut off my selvage. And then I'm just going to turn my ruler. I've got this long ruler. The rulers that I think that everybody should start with no matter what is one of those long 24 by 6 inch rulers. This one happens to be 24 by 8.5, but then it's kind of nice because you can cut a full width, a full strip of fabric, and you can cut everything else down pretty easily, typically using your ruler to measure your cut. So now I'm going to find 22 inches, 22 and a half. So here I am. I'm lining this up on this line. Here's my 22 and a half right on the side that I just cut. Just going to double check everything, make sure everything is nice and straight. And then I'm going to cut. So here is my top border and my bottom border. My other ones were 26. My ruler is only 24, so I could use the mat. But there's another option that I'm just going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my selvage. This particular ruler is 24. And I need 26, so I need 2 inches more. So I'm going to take my little handy dandy ruler, whichever one I have that has 2 inches. I'm going to come down here at the bottom. I'm going to add 2 inches to my 24 inches. Make sure everything is lined up, which it seems to be. 1, 2, 24. 26. I feel confident. I'm going to cut it. And these two 26-inch borders are my side borders. It's going to go here. And this one is going to go here. And then this is where the cornerstones come in. One goes here. These are my 2.5 inch cornerstones. So what I would do is pin this to the top, sew this one on, pin this one to the bottom, sew this one on, and then I would go ahead and sew this cornerstone to this one, this cornerstone to this one. That'll help to match up that seam right there, so that I would sew this one on. Do the same thing over here, sew that one on. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and cut these, but first you have to measure. So what should happen is when you take a 2.5 inch strip and a 2.5 inch strip, and my measurement, which was 22.5, you subtract your seam allowances there. You're going to lose a 1/2 inch there and a 1/2 inch there. That's the other thing that is on your sheet, is your little math. So that it'll say, this is what I've done and this is the size. Whatever that size is for you, or you can piece the whole thing and then measure it. Also works well. I'm going to go ahead and cut the top one, the bottom one, the 2 side ones, and put in those cornerstones. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and did my math and cut mine. I feel pretty confident that I know the math and I feel pretty confident with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I went ahead and cut them because I kind of like to just look at it first and make sure that, oh, it really does look right. It does. I love the brown. I love this piece out here. I also already know that I am going to use this teal piece for my binding. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and sew my borders on. Same thing is going to happen. I'm going to, once I get this one on, I'm going to sew the top on. And then I'm going to sew this bottom one on. Also this cornerstone to here, this one to here, and sew that on and do the same thing on that side. Then we'll quilt it however you'd like to quilt it. Doesn't really matter. You can stitch in the ditch. You can do a little bit of free motion if you'd like to. You can hand quilt it, whatever you'd like to do, and then we'll go ahead and bind it. We'll show you a picture here at the end of the video. And again, this was our first one. Every single month we're going to do a different border technique with our little Celebrate the Seasons panels. And again, this is just my option for this one. I would love to see what else you've done with your panels, and join us next month as we put together the cute little snowman for January's wall hanging.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.